We had just started doing the Dick Van Dyke Show, so he knew who I was. And I said what a fan I was, and I said, I'm so...
It's incredible to think about the lasting impact Dick Van Dyke has had on the world, bringing laughter, song, and dance to generations for over 70 years. From his iconic roles in Mary Poppins to the Dick Van Dyke Show, he's been a true legend. Always smiling and moving, even well into his 90s. Recently, however, a health update forced him to cancel a major appearance, leaving many fans heartbroken. At 99, the reality of his age is certainly setting in. So, what exactly has been happening behind the scenes for this beloved star? Born Richard Wayne Van Dyke on December 13, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri. Dick's family moved to Danville, Illinois, where he spent most of his early life. His mother, Hazel, was a stenographer, and his father, Lauren, was a salesman. Show business wasn't just for Dick. His younger brother, Jerry Van Dyke, also became an actor and even joined Dick later on the Dick Van Dyke Show. Dick had Dutch, English, Irish, and Scottish roots. And an interesting fact is his relation to John Alden, a Mayflower passenger. At Danville High School, his love for performing truly ignited in the choir and drama club. Though he once considered becoming a minister, acting pulled him in more strongly. He even left high school in his final year to join the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. Getting in wasn't easy. He was initially rejected for being too skinny, but persevered until he was accepted. Instead of flying, he served as a radio announcer and later entertained troops across the U.S. in the special services. After leaving the military in 1946, he finally received his high school diploma in 2004, a full circle moment for a man who had come so far. After the war, in the late 1940s, Dick began working as a radio DJ in Danville. Then, in 1947, a mime artist named Phil Erickson convinced him to form a comedy duo. Calling themselves Eric and Van, the Merry Mutes, they performed silent comedy, syncing to records, and performing mime in West Coast nightclubs. By the early 1950s, the duo moved to Atlanta and even had their own TV show, The Merry Mutes, which featured comedy skits and music. These humble beginnings taught Dick the ropes of entertainment. Soon after, he landed a spot at WDSU-TV, a New Orleans TV station, first as a solo comedian and then as host of a comedy program, slowly building his name. In 1954, Dick made his national TV debut on Chance of a Lifetime with Dennis James. A few years later, he appeared on The Phil Silvers Show and other programs like The Pat Boone, Chevy Showroom, and The Polly Bergen Show. A lucky break came when an Army friend, now a CBS executive, recommended Dick to the network, leading to a 7-year contract. Around this time, he also worked as an anchor for the CBS morning show alongside Walter Cronkite, later joking that he had no idea what he was doing as a morning show host. In 1959, Dick made his Broadway debut in The Girls Against the Boys, which, despite its short run of only 16 performances, gave him valuable stage experience. In 1960, Dick was cast as Albert Peterson in the Broadway musical by Birdie, starring alongside Chita Rivera and Paul Lynde. Though the musical received a mixed reception, Dick's performance stood out, earning him a Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical in 1961. This led to the 1963 film adaptation of Bye Bye, Birdie. Dick wasn't entirely pleased with the film's changes, as the focus shifted away from his character. But he still delivered a strong performance, and the film did well. Then came the role that made him a household name, The Dick Van Dyke Show, from 1961 to 1966. He played Rob Petrie, a comedy writer for a TV show. The series was created by Carl Reiner, who initially wanted to play the lead himself, but CBS chose Dick for the role. The talented cast included Rose Marie, Maury Amsterdam, and Mary Tyler Moore, who played Rob's wife. Viewers adored the show, and critics praised Dick's physical comedy and timing. He won 3 Emmy Awards for his role, and the show itself won 4 Emmys for Outstanding Comedy Series. The show was lauded for its fresh and real blend of workplace and home life. In 2004, the cast reunited for The Dick Van Dyke Show Revisited, a special hosted by Ray Romano, which paid tribute to the show that had launched Dick's career into stardom. Dick's stardom wasn't limited to television. In 1964, he joined the world of Disney as Bert the Chimney Sweep in Mary Poppins. He also played Mr. Dawes Sr., the old bank manager, for which he wore heavy makeup and was credited under the fake name Nav Cade, an anagram of Dick Van Dyke. However, his British accent in Mary Poppins has become famously mocked, even being voted one of the worst film accents ever in a 2003 poll by Empire magazine. Dick later admitted his accent coach was Irish and no better at it than he was, and nobody on set corrected him. Despite this, the movie was a massive hit, and Dick, along with Julie Andrews, won a Grammy for the film's soundtrack. Throughout the 1960s, Dick starred in several more comedy films, some of which, like What a Way to Go, Fitzwilly, and Divorce American Style, were not as successful. But in 1968, he found success again with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, playing Caractacus Potts with his natural American accent. The film, which featured the same songwriters and choreographers as Mary Poppins, became a beloved classic for families after becoming a household name as Rob Petrie. Dick Van Dyke continued to shine in both television and film from the late 1960s to the early 1990s, remaining a familiar face across America and Canada. His role as Bert in Mary Poppins was unforgettable, even with the famously mocked accent, and he was even nominated for a Golden Globe for that performance. He also starred in Bye Bye Birdie and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, took a more serious role in the comic in 1969, appeared in Dick Tracy in 1990, and voiced Mr. Bloomsbury in Curious George in 2006. He later had a fun turn as the museum villain, Cecil Fredericks, in Night at the Museum, a role he revisited in the sequels. Let's not forget his guest roles in the 1970s on Columbo and The Carol Burnett Show, and The New Dick Van Dyke Show, which ran from 1971 to 1974. Even in his later years, Dick Van Dyke was full of surprises. In 2010, he recorded a children's music album called Rhythm Train with Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer Chad Smith and singer Leslie Bixler, even rapping on one track, showing his playful side. Then, in 2017, he released a jazz album, Step Back in Time, his first solo album since 1963, featuring songs from the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. He also recorded a Christmas duet with Jane Lynch, We're Going Caroling, a sweet holiday treat for fans. One of his most touching comebacks was in 2018 when he appeared in Mary Poppins Returns as Mr. Dawes Jr., the son of the old banker character he'd played in the original film. His brief scene brought nostalgia, joy, and even tears to longtime fans. During the production of WandaVision, Marvel producers even turned to Van Dyke himself for advice on how to capture the feel of classic sitcoms like The Dick Van Dyke Show, despite some stumbles in Hollywood. Like his British accent in Mary Poppins, Van Dyke handled it all with humor. In 2017, while accepting an award from BAFTA, he joked, "I appreciate this opportunity to apologize for inflicting on them the most atrocious Cockney accent in the history of cinema." And then laughed. "I was working with an entire English cast, and nobody said a word." Even his mistakes became part of his charm in 2023. At 97 years old, Dick Van Dyke made headlines again in an unexpected way when he became the oldest person ever to compete on The Masked Singer. Disguised as Gnome, he was the first contestant unmasked in season 9, and the moment was unforgettable. When he revealed himself, the crowd and judges gave him a long, loud applause, and before leaving the stage, he sang a bit of Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, reminding everyone of the joy he spread for decades. The same year, it was announced he would appear in a few episodes of Days of Our Lives. In December 2023, CBS aired a special tribute, Dick Van Dyke, 98 Years of Magic, celebrating his life, work, and lasting place in American entertainment. But he wasn't done yet. In December 2024, Van Dyke appeared in a music video for Coldplay's song All My Love, not just starring in it, but also producing it alongside his wife, Arlene Silver, another example of his unending creativity. Even at an age when most people have stepped away from the spotlight. Through highs and lows, movie flops and TV hits, Dick Van Dyke has always stayed true to himself, proving that joy, talent, and kindness don't have an age limit. Dick Van Dyke's personal life has been as colorful as his career. On February 12, 1948, he married Marjorie Willett, live on a radio show called Bride and Groom from the Chapman Park Hotel in Los Angeles. They had 4 children, Christian, Barry, Stacy, and Carrie Beth. Their marriage lasted for decades, but behind the scenes, things weren't perfect. In 1976, Van Dyke began a relationship with actress Michelle Triola Marvin, an affair that deeply affected his marriage, leaving him writhing in guilt. He and Marjorie eventually separated and divorced in 1984. Despite the pain, he stayed with Michelle for over 30 years until her death in 2009. Then, in 2012, at the age of 86, Dick married again, this time to Arlene Silver, a makeup artist 46 years his junior, whom he had met 6 years earlier at the Screen Actors Guild Awards. It was a quiet but joyful new chapter in his life. Family was very important to Van Dyke. His children and grandchildren even appeared with him on Diagnosis, Murder, his son. Barry and grandsons Shane and Carrie were often part of the show. In total, Dick has 7 grandchildren. However, there have been moments of deep sadness, too. In 1987, his granddaughter Jessica passed away from Ray's syndrome, a painful loss that led Van Dyke to appear in public service messages to warn families about the dangers of giving aspirin to children. Even as his fame grew, Van Dyke remained close to his faith, teaching Sunday school at his Presbyterian church and serving as an elder there, grounding him even while he entertained millions. A scary moment in 2013 showed just how fragile life can be. On August 19, 2013, Van Dyke, then 87, was driving along the US 101 freeway in Calabasas, California, when his Jaguar suddenly caught fire. Flames grew fast, and smoke poured out, but thankfully, a stranger saw what was happening and pulled Van Dyke from the burning car just in time. Dick wasn't hurt, but the car was completely destroyed. Even with such a close call, Van Dyke stayed calm and thankful. The incident reminded everyone how quickly things can change, even for a legend. Not long after, he would face a more mysterious and troubling health problem that had no clear answers. For years, something was bothering Van Dyke, an invisible ailment that affected his life significantly. It all started with a strange sensation in his head. Dick Van Dyke had always been full of life, but starting in his 80s, he began to suffer from a strange, pounding sensation in his head every time he lay down. It didn't feel like a regular headache. It was more like a heartbeat pulsing inside his skull, and it wouldn't go away. He sought answers for 7 years, undergoing every test doctors could think of: CAT scans, Mr. Is, spinal tap spot. Everything came back normal. No diagnosis, no clear cause. In April 2013, Van Dyke turned to social media for help, tweeting, "My head bangs every time I lay down. I've had every test come back that I'm perfectly healthy. Anybody got any ideas?" The response was immediate, with fans offering support, stories, and advice. But it wasn't just uncomfortable, it was affecting his life. Van Dyke had to cancel several public appearances, and a report from USA Today said doctors advised him not to fly. Without proper sleep or relief from the pounding, he had no choice but to rest at home in Malibu. Fans were worried. This was someone who danced on rooftops in Mary Poppins, who performed with endless energy, and now he couldn't even travel because of the pain. It felt like a turning point, making everyone wonder if the joyful, lively Van Dyke we knew was slowing down. Then came a twist. In May 2013, after years of suffering and dozens of tests, Dick Van Dyke finally believed he had found the cause of his problem: his dental implants. He tweeted, "It seems that my titanium dental implants are the cause of my head pounding." It was a surprising answer, but it also made sense to many, with others responding with their own stories of pain linked to implants or metal in the body. What seemed like a mystery for years now had a reason, though it came at a cost. But even while dealing with pain, Van Dyke didn't stop smiling, nor did he stop performing. In 2018, at the age of 92, he returned to the big screen in Mary Poppins. Returns, playing Mr. Dawes Jr., the son of the very same banker he portrayed in the original movie. In a moment that shocked the audience, he danced, jumping up on a desk and delivering a full routine. He later told People magazine, "I got to jump up on a desk and do a dance number. It surprised everybody, but nobody was as surprised as I was. We did several takes of it, and I was just amazed, and I enjoyed it, of course." At an age when most people are far from the spotlight, Van Dyke was dancing, acting, and inspiring a new generation. In 2023, he did it again, appearing on The Masked Singer as Gnome. When he sang "When You're Smiling," the judges and audience were left speechless. When asked why he chose that song, he said, "We picked out one which typifies me." It was his wife who had helped him choose it. And once again, the world smiled with Dick Van Dyke. However, even joy has its limits. In late 2024, more challenges arrived. During the California wildfires in December, Van Dyke was forced to evacuate his Malibu home. He later said, "I was trying to crawl to my car. I had exhausted myself. I couldn't get up. 3 neighbors came and carried me out." Thankfully, his home survived, but just weeks later, in January 2025, he had to leave again, this time because of the Palisades fire. Still, through it all, Dick Van Dyke keeps moving forward. He is sober after years of struggling with alcohol, having checked himself into a hospital in 1972 and worked hard to get better. He also used to smoke heavily, but later started using nicotine gum to stay away from cigarettes. No matter the challenge, whether fire, illness, or personal pain, Dick Van Dyke has faced it all. And somehow, through it all, he keeps dancing. He keeps smiling, and he keeps giving the world a reason to smile with him. Recently, he opened up about something most people try to avoid: death. At 98, Dick Van Dyke is still full of life, but he's also acutely aware that his time may be near. In December 2024, during a director's cut of Coldplay's music video, All My Love, he made a bold and honest statement. "I am acutely aware that I can go any day now, but I don't know why it doesn't concern me. I'm not afraid of it." These words came with no fear, just peace. The video, shot at his Malibu home, celebrated his upcoming 99th birthday and was filled with special moments. Photos of his family, treasures from his long career, and a lot of love. Dick shared what made his life so joyful. "I got to do what I do, play and act silly." While he laughed and danced, he also grew emotional. Speaking about love with his wife Arlene Silver and what it means to care for someone else as much as yourself, love is certainly the feeling of caring about the welfare and the life of the other person as much as you care for yourself. In the video, he joined Coldplay's Chris Martin at the piano and sang along. His favorite lyric from the song was, "Until I die, let me hold you if you cry." But even during such deep moments, Van Dyke's humor still showed up. When asked to close his eyes and think about all the people who had meant something to him, he joked, "I'm too old for this. I'll pass out and go to sleep. I'll take a nap." He may be near 100, but his spirit refuses to grow old. In May 2025, Dick Van Dyke shared another personal truth. He admitted that living this long hasn't been easy. During an emotional podcast interview, he spoke about losing close friends, especially fellow actor Ed Asner, who died in 2021. They had once hoped to work together again on a remake of The Odd Couple. "That would have been such fun, and we lost it. I've lost a lot of friends." His wife, Arlene, added, "He's outlived everybody. That's the curse of living to almost 100. Despite all the loss, Van Dyke remains hopeful and thankful. "Life's been good to me. I can't complain." He and Arlene also reflected on their relationship, which began in 2012. The age gap between them is 46 years, but they both say it's never been a problem. "We get along so well. Everybody said it wouldn't work, and Arlene agreed. It's eerie how well the marriage works." She even joked, "People the same age don't last." While love has kept him strong, Dick also credits his health to his regular fitness routine. Even at his age, he still stretches, does yoga, and uses exercise machines. "I've always exercised 3 days a week," he said, but in recent times, his health has clearly declined, and he started to share more about what that feels like. In September 2024, Dick Van Dyke was seen in Malibu looking weaker than ever. He was walking with a cane and needed help to get into a car, reminding fans that despite his joyful energy, he's still nearly 100. Not long after, he shared a deeply emotional thought. When asked about his upcoming 99th birthday, he said, "Just praying that I make it." These words were simple but heavy. He also admitted that even walking now felt difficult. "I'm very old." 2 years earlier, in 2023, he was involved in a serious car crash, crashing into a gate in Malibu and nearly dying, which left fans shaken. Since then, many have kept a close eye on his health. Despite all this, Van Dyke says he wants to work until his last breath. He said that winning an award for his birthday variety special reminded him of what he's truly proud. I hope I'm remembered for making people laugh for 75 years. His legacy, he says, isn't about fame or awards. It's about laughter. I've been in the business 75 years. I can't believe that I'm still here and performing. Even now, he jokes that he's open to more roles. I'm looking for work if anybody has. And to young actors, he gave one simple piece of advice. You have to stick with it. Be patient if you've got the confidence in yourself. But that spark doesn't mean every day is easy. On June 28, 2025, fans were excited to see Dick Van Dyke live at an event called Vandy Camp. He was supposed to host it with his wife at the Arlene Dick Van Dyke Theatre at Malibu High School. But just before the event, something changed. Arlene took the stage and gently broke the news. I have to inform you that Dick is not up to coming to celebrate with us today. I'm sorry, she explained it honestly. When you're 99 and a half years